Hello, and welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. I'm Joe Devine. Alex is here also, Alex Stewart.
Hello.
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 All right?
Yeah.
Good.
Fine.
Today's episode, what did you say, fine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Today's episode, we were joined by Nick Tyler-Hicks, whose job role, what is it? We spent the whole episode talking about scouting, but his job...
He's a recruitment analyst.
That is his title.
Correct.
Recruitment Analyst for Millwall Football Club.
Yes.
And so today's episode really was a day in the life of, or more like a season in the life of, or perhaps even a life in the life of a recruitment analyst. We didn't talk specifically about Millwall, but we talked to Nick about what he does for a job, how that all works, how the process works. I guess in some ways it will be specific to Millwall, but we can draw inferences from that to what the life of a recruitment analyst would be like at most clubs. And there's some interesting little nuggets to pull from this one. I guess Millwall are a team working with a budget, like all teams are.
Yep.
Their budget is going to be smaller than teams in the Premier League, for example. So what difficulties does that present? How do players become flagged to look at? How does the... the organisation of it sounds like a nightmare. Not in that they're doing anything wrong, but just in that, like, the keeping on top of all that information.
A huge amount of information.
Yeah. A lot
Enormous.
of a lot of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked to Nick all about that and found it very interesting. Hope you find it interesting too. This episode, of course, is supported by The Athletic, the best place to read about football online. Get a 30-day free trial and 50% off an annual subscription by visiting theathletic.co.uk/Tifo, and that works out to 8 pence a day. I saw a comment on last week's podcast saying, what does pence mean, from someone who isn't from the UK? I'm sorry, it is a 1/100th denomination of a pound, or I guess it would be like a cent if you were in America.
Yeah.
Someone's calling me, but I won't answer it now because that would be inappropriate and bad timing in the middle of letting you know how great The Athletic is. Anyway, now that that's done, listen to the episode. Hope you enjoyed it, and you can leave us a review, a rating.
Have you run out of things to say and you're just waffling a little bit now?
I never do that. I never do these things, and I feel like I should be doing them.
Click like, subscribe.
Yeah,
leave us a.
We're on. We
we're
record
on all the
these
things.
They're on YouTube.
We never. People just do it anyway.
I know, but I feel like we should be. When you listen to
professional.
When I listen to other podcasts, and then I always hear them saying, "Oh, do this thing." I think
enable notifications.
Do all of those things anyway. You know what they are. Just do them.
Just do the things you're supposed to do.
For Christ's sake. Yeah.
Honestly.
Okay, that's the episode. Enjoy it. Hello, Nick Tyler-Hicks.
Hello, Joe.
Thanks for coming, man. Really appreciate it. What is your job title?
Recruitment Analyst.
Recruitment Analyst, okay. And you work at Millwall Football Club?
I do.
Great, okay. Can you talk me through a sort of average day at work for you? I'm sure there's lots of different things that you do, but a kind of average day at work would be great.
So Monday is a good place to start, I guess. Mondays. Which is a busy day for me in particular because I assign our video scouts fixtures. And that's based on our priority score, which we've made for monitoring players that have been flagged, and then players that need watching, basically. So I distribute video with 1 or 2 players for our team of video scouts to report back on.
What's a priority score, just in terms of priority of how quickly they need to look at it?
Yeah,
right.
So there's many things that contribute to the priority score, and then that's listed, and so whoever's at the top needs to be sent out and distributed, be it via video or live scouting, because obviously we have people that go out on the ground and watch games as well.
Does this mean also that you have video editing skills?
Yeah, some.
Would you like a job?
I don't know if I'd be able to edit your videos. But
big step down anyway.
Yeah, very probably.
Lots of video editing, particularly pre-window video editing for the manager.
Right. And are you going through lists of things that they would like to look at, or are you providing the things that you think that they need to be looking at? Is it a kind of mixture of the two?
A bit of both. You learn over time what that manager would like to see examples of for a player. So there's an element of clips involved of that player doing it, but then you can't be just watching a game sometimes to see how the rest is unfolding. So clips might help you to paint a picture of a player and to get an idea, but then you end up just giving out games for them to watch, even if they're ball in play or whatever. But
I guess because the context is important, isn't it? I mean, you know, there's this sort of age-old stereotypical view of online scouts that they watch YouTube videos of cut together clips which can make any player look good.
You can literally make anyone look all right if you go and pull together a playlist of them doing good things.
Yeah. Okay, so let's pick a striker then. Striker X. If you are compiling a video clip, presumably, as you said, it's either based on a list of things that the manager would like to see, or that the staff would like to see, or that you're providing. What sort of things are they beyond the obvious of goals? I would have thought goals probably don't pop up too often in those lists, do they?
For a centre forward, you would watch them scoring goals. So,
sure.
Yeah, but it's position specific and specific to us as a club. So we have what we want from each position. So like clearly defined, because that helps us to distribute to scouts as well what we want from each player in each position. Certain responsibilities and particular metrics that player needs to be good at.
Yeah.
So the clips can then follow that kind of process as well.
Right. Okay.
So for a fullback, for example, they need to be defence first. So we might start with them being good at defending.
Right.
And
that's a Millwall thing, is it? Defence first?
Yeah, defence first fullbacks has been in the past fundamental for us. Mm-hmm. So, and then for wide players, it would be, you can have different types of wide player, but like if I was compiling one on a Jed Wallace type player, you'd have them ball carrying and putting balls into the box and things like that. So, but that's very basic, just to put together a few clips of a player doing that, and then but that all comes at the end of a big process that's gone into highlighting that player in the first place. So
right, okay.
That's kind of just how you would present them visually,
right,
and through video to those that are then going on to make a decision.
Right, okay.
So presumably the process starts with you have a sense that the manager is going to want to play, let's say 4-4-2, and they would like a particular kind of defensive line. They'd like their wide players to do a certain thing. They'd like to play one big aerial striker and one smaller, quicker striker, etc., etc. And then I'm guessing there's a squad assessment for who you've already got. So you're looking at weak points, and then everything else stems from that sense of what do we want as an overall picture, and where should we be looking to improve? Because you can't constantly improve everything, right?
No,
that'd be too time consuming.
If you can target the weakest player in your squad and look to improve them, then you're improving the group, because especially us, we can't go out and improve on our best player, whilst keeping our best player. It was
that was a point that was made in, I can't remember if it was Soccernomics or the Numbers game, but it makes much more sense to improve your weakest player rather than try and go out and buy somebody who's fantastically great, perhaps in a position where you're already quite strong.
Yeah.
And strikers are the obvious example of that. So
exactly. I imagine that's club specific as well. But yeah, like you say, it does make more sense, and especially for us, because financial constraints and where we are as a club within the championship means that we can't go and add such quality players that are better than the best of our players. It has to be improving those that maybe aren't quite doing it, or where we're lacking in certain areas, like you say.
And presumably that's where data is particularly helpful, because if you're a Manchester United or a Chelsea or whomsoever, then you can probably do a lot of your scouting in the top 5 European leagues, Champions League quality players.
Yeah.
It's, the pool is as big as, it's slightly bigger than the pool you're looking at, because there'll be a degree of quality that you probably can't attract. but you don't need to look across the whole thing. Whereas you guys will be, I'm guessing, looking for players even, at sort of Scottish Championship level, League Two, possibly even the topper echelons of non-league. So the pool of people that you want to be looking at is much, much bigger. So data then helps winnow that down.
Exactly, yeah. I imagine the problems with big clubs are, the problems are relative. Like, they have to find the best of the best to better what they have. And, I guess that's a problem for what they face as well. But, we can go down the leagues. I mean, it's very rare, even in Championship level, for players to come out of League Two and be a success, particularly short term. What we've found and what we've experienced over 4 years of recruitment now as well. So
just as a result of in the gap of and quality in the leagues,
it seems to be growing as well. Like, Premier League to the Championship is huge. Championship to League One, it seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Really?
So even the example of players last season, the better players in League One that did get moves, haven't quite hit the ground running. Obviously, it's long term. We'll paint a clearer picture of whether or not they are successful, but it's difficult.
It makes me think of players like Jamie Vardy, for example. Is he just a kind of exception to these sorts of rules, or is it? Do you think something particularly? I know you haven't spent an awful lot of time studying Jamie Vardy, who does not play at Millwall, but do we think maybe that is just part of the way in which he plays that is better suited to
perhaps
Leicester as a team or the Premier League? Because he took a big jump, didn't he?
He did. Our chief scout remembers when he was tearing it up at Fleetwood,
right?
And was just like, everyone that went to see him was saying, "Oh my God, like he's going to be good, he's going to be good," and everyone knew it. Yeah. Like, he was so far ahead of everything at that level, that meant that he was going to get an opportunity.
It's the same with Danny Ings, who was non-league down in the south as well. I was talking to somebody at a Winchester City game recently who said the same thing. It was just so clear how much better they were that it was inevitable at some point. And obviously the degree to which that step up occurs that's what's very difficult to predict. And I'd say Vardy's probably exceeded expectations in that regard.
He was a bit of a late bloomer, wasn't he, Jamie Vardy? Or he certainly was.
I think so.
On the older age when he got his move. Right? Yeah.
And to a lesser extent, Lee Gregory coming from Halifax to Millwall when they were in the Championship. It was the season before I came in. But I mean, he was 25, I think, when he came from Halifax to Millwall, and he's been a successful player in the Championship. And so he's another example of a late one from the lower levels, but they are few and far between.
Right, yeah, exceptions. So while we're on the topic of age, can I ask you about the differences between scouting and analysing younger players who still have room to improve and players who presumably are at their peak at the moment? What are the challenges when you are scouting younger players and trying to work out what their ceiling might be?
Well, all sorts, really. I personally would look for like a base level of technical ability, and if they have that, then...
What does that include?
Touch. So like a good touch, they strike the ball cleanly. Like, we watch a lot of football, so you see a lot of players that can't even strike the football, but if they're athletic and do a good job for their team, that can take them so far.
That's interesting.
A player with more a higher level of fundamental technical ability can develop the other side of their game, then they would be one to monitor over a longer term.
And is that instinctive or technical, do you think? Can you teach a player I'm sure you can teach the techniques of touch, but with the players, you don't have to name names, but in the Millwall squad, for example, the player who you consider to have the best touch, would you say that player has that instinctively, or is that something that they've learnt?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
You can certainly develop it. I probably will go back to Lee Gregory because he came from the National League, but the strongest part of his game in the last couple of seasons has been his hold up and link up play, like in his first touch, in helping us get up the pitch and whatnot, has been class. So whilst I wasn't around when he came in, I doubt it was that good, but it's something he's worked on and is like outstanding at now. And
Right, yeah.
I even saw him for Stoke a few weeks ago, and it was like a masterclass in hold up play and link up play,
Right.
for a 30-year-old who was in the National League 5 years ago. So.
Okay. So back to the base level then, we've got touch, being able to cleanly strike a ball, are there other things? I mean, I know it's a funny one, obviously talking to you about it, I'm kind of keen to draw it out because these are things which will be obvious to you when you go to work, but to me, I'm sort of thinking, what does that actually mean? So if we can, is there anything else which is involved in what you would consider to be a fundamental base set of skills? Do you consider athleticism as part of that, or is that?
Yes, absolutely. You have to really, but that can be developed as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then there is a way a player runs can please you aesthetically speaking. So
Right.
that the distance people cover in games is always interesting for us if we can get hold of it. It's not something we have, unfortunately, like to work with or to analyse, but that's always interesting in total numbers of ground covered. For example, like they might cover the highest amount, but if they don't please you aesthetically speaking, you might have never said that they would be able to cover that kind of ground. So
This is Jordan Henderson.
But also, I watched a YouTube video of clips, which doesn't tell me anything about the player. Is he at Salzburg, the player that Manchester United are reportedly interested in? Haaland, is it? Is his name the striker?
Yeah.
He runs so weird. I'd never watched him play before. He runs in such a strange way. He's quite tall and he's really hunched over, a bit like how Alexis Sanchez, the opposite of Alexis Sanchez, is running with his chest first. He sort of runs with his nose first. It's very strange, but in a Paul Pogba-like way, seems to be able to spindle the ball around with his very, very long legs. But watching him run, you would think he probably doesn't have the athletic ability to keep that up. Maybe that's just a trick of the eye.
I watched a player Tuesday who was very stiff and very upright in their running style, but rapid.
Right.
Rapid in straight lines. But then when it came to stuff in close quarters and agility speaking, he wasn't very good. So as he progresses, whilst he's kind of standing out at what he's doing now, because he can knock and run, his lack of agility and the way he moves might come back to be detrimental to him, or might hold him back as he progresses up the levels. It was a young player, so that was an interesting one for me as well, because I could tell within 30 seconds of watching him run that you don't please me aesthetically speaking, like from an athletic point of view, but he's so quick and can do what he can do there. Does that outweigh what he can't do there? So that's always the dilemma you face, really.
Do you have a sort of internal grading system in your brain when you watch a player like that and you think, let's use this example, okay, he can knock and run, he's fast in straight lines, but there's an agility issue there. Maybe that means that he might be, broadly speaking, successful in League One, but not in the Championship? Does it work like that in your head?
Yes, because I fill in a report on that player. Like I've done a report on that player from that game.
Right.
And we have a physical section of that report which is scored. And that includes agility, pace, mobility, etc., along with a few other things. We also conclude our reports with where you think their current ability is at level-wise in the English game, so from non-league to Premier League. And then on the back of that, you have a potential ability.
Right.
So you have to make that decision on every player in every report from what you watch. So yes. And for him, I'd put current ability League 2, potential League 1.
Right, okay.
So that's based on this one time I've seen him play.
Yeah.
And
that would be finessed if you were to return to see him again, or if another scout saw him.
Yeah, so I could easily change that, or if I, likewise, if I felt I stuck by what I saw originally, then...
That's a lot of responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, and...
Do you feel that?
We've had to help the scouts with it a few times, because they might even call up, because this is a sort of last 6 months, this report template where we've demanded that kind of ruling on ability and potential. But they're like, it was a terrible game. Like, how am I don't really want to say what level we could play now based on this terrible game.
Right.
And as well as the potential of this player based on this one example. But that's exactly what we want. Unfortunately, that's the nature of scouting.
Is there a little notes bit where you can write in those caveats?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty
Okay.
of room for comments for every section. So
Yeah.
there's technical, tactical, mental, and physical sections, as
Right.
well as the final recommendation. And there's room for them to say so. But if they leave it blank, then
Right.
we're on the phone saying, "Don't, don't leave it blank."
So your job is effectively is grading people.
Can I drill down into the minutiae of that though? Just in terms of the numbers, and then you can ask the question, because I was just wanted to pick up on that. When you say pace, for example, you've got your little score for pace. What
Yeah.
number are you putting in there, and what does that
Okay,
mean?
so it's 1 to 10, but then we've benchmarked our own players.
Right.
So using physical data from within the club,
Right.
we've given our slowest player a 3,
Okay.
and then our quickest player an 8.
Okay.
And we've done that for each metric. So our lowest rank was 3, our highest rank is 8 for all the physical metrics.
So it's internal to the club, and it's not a sort of more universal thing. You've come up with this yourselves. Okay.
Yeah, it's specific.
Right.
The physical metrics used to be very poor to very good, and it left so much
Yeah.
obscurity. So we've changed it to numbers, because the physical data especially is something you can't get data for, or we can't get data for.
Yeah.
So we need that judgment to be as accurate as possible from people who have eyes on the player.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we're averaging those numbers to paint a physical picture, a physical profile of that player, then that's what we do. But yeah, we have benchmarked Millwall players. So
Do they know their numbers?
No. It's all from their testing. So they'll know how they tested and where they came as within the club, but they don't know that they're part of our reports.
Okay,
Well,
right.
they might now.
It reminded me of when Lukaku posted that picture of the slowest runners at United. Go on, Alex.
Yeah, so you're grading players, and those judgments, obviously you'll watch, I'm guessing, probably well over 100 players during the course of a season.
Easily, yeah.
And everything is kind of kept on file, and I don't mean this in a bad way, who grades you? Because the process of everybody, I'm sure everybody's got a story of like, oh, I saw that lad in the park and he now plays for England, or blah blah blah.
My dad played with Glenn Hoddle.
Well, there you go.
5 years behind or ahead at school. I can't remember, so not really. But
Okay.
that's our family's version of that story.
That's good.
It's not strong. It's not the strongest.
It's not that good, is it? No. Yeah.
I don't have any, but
Do you not?
Well, then
not
you win.
football wise. No. We digress as usual. But presumably the way that you're kind of measured, or not you personally, but scouts in general, it can't simply be on the fact that, I don't know, you maybe went to go and watch a guy once, said that his ceiling was the Championship and he's now an England cap player and therefore you're terrible at your job. But how is it assessed?
Well,
Do
that
they
would
keep
be-
track of everyone that you've looked at and kind of compare it with how they're actually doing, and then say, well, this guy keeps getting it wrong or keeps getting it right? Or
A scout for the scouts.
right, kind of, yeah.
Well,
I guess a director of football would partly be that, but
Well, we're constantly doing that with our scouts. So yeah, you're right in a sense that who's doing that for us.
Yeah.
Because we're essentially going through who the scouts have recommended over time and looking into how that's worked out, and then judging them accordingly. So yeah, I guess with us, I mean, you could share so many opinions on a daily basis, but then how you're judged is on who you've signed and how well you've done, and or how well your list of people that you recommended to the manager has done or gone on to do is the best way, I guess. Because after all this process, because we haven't even we haven't started at the beginning really with how we flag. We've just started with scouting, but at the end of everything, so flagging, scouting, and then actually getting into signing these people. I've missed what point I was making.
Well, let's take it back to the beginning though, because it's an interesting place to start. When you say flagging, presumably you mean flagging up to the club that this is a potential player that we should be following.
Well, you say the club, but we are the recruitment at the club.
So flagging up to yourselves,
flagging up to ourselves,
Yeah.
and going into the database, because
Yeah.
we've built a a database, so to speak.
Which includes all the players that you like, or more?
or that have been flagged.
Right,
So
okay.
we use data to flag.
How many are in there?
At the moment, it's relatively new because
Yeah.
we were using like a provider. They still provide the report templates for us to use,
Right.
but it wasn't so efficient or effective at like actually analysing the reports, and
Yeah.
we've ended up having to pull them out and make our own because
Right.
what we wanted to do with it isn't really achievable with the provider. So it's relatively new, but there's about 400 players in it at the moment, for example.
Okay.
But
And they're all at different stages in the process of. Some of them presumably haven't even got around to looking at yet, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Right.
Players that have been flagged recently are on the agenda for watching, and they'll have a higher priority score, for example,
Right.
for those that haven't been watched.
So how does someone get flagged?
So yeah, like as I was saying, we use data. We analyse data. We have a couple of providers, so we use Opta and Y-Scout. We run data through our own system, which we've built, and that will score players and provide rankings and lists in themselves of who's performing well per league, positionally speaking, and comparing across leagues as well. So you could flag players up that way through data. There's always the option for scouts to flag players as well. So if you're at a game and you've been watching a couple of others who we've asked them to watch, but someone else caught your eye,
The goalie's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
they can come back and say that. Same with us when we're out watching games. You know, we don't believe in one thing over the other. It's
Yeah.
use everything to your
Okay.
advantage, data and eyes, essentially, because
With the data, and we don't have to. I don't want to ask you for the top secret of the trade behind the Millwall's closed doors, but can we just pick a sort of random example to help the listeners understand what we're saying? When you say that you use data, would you say, for example, that let's say Millwall needed a new right back, and that there were these, as you said, already defence first as an example,
Yeah.
or someone who was quick. You use the data, you narrow down first depending on who you're looking for. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay.
So the score that I mentioned is weighted towards those
Right.
player requirements, and they're adaptable. So any change in the requirements of the types of player, you can change the weightings, and that will churn out a different list. But yeah, it's like 50, 60 metrics, I think, with Y-Scout, and then
Right.
a few more with Opta, and then we're weighting all of those and producing a number at the end of it, which is hard, which is difficult to do, because one number to summarise every player is difficult. But then we break it down with defensive, possession, attacking scores, and then we'll like dig a little deeper with specific metrics as well. So it's not just here's a list of players in order, go and watch the top five. It's more fluid than that, but it's there for us to use and to say, oh, this performance data is excellent, it's worth looking into this player a bit further. And we can also type their name in and see who's watched them previously, what they thought of them, and they might get like a fresh flag or a boost on our priority score to go and watch them.
Are there certain leagues that you don't look at simply because either the overall quality of the league is so poor, even if there are outstanding players there, it's probably not worth committing resources to them, or you don't have the resources to monitor them, for example?
Yes and no. We were very much domestic based up until the summer, and we've now expanded to certain leagues abroad.
Does that mean you get to go on holidays?
They're not called holidays.
No,
Joe.
sorry, not
They're
holidays.
Scouted assignments.
Work assignments. Yes, that's what I meant. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly those.
Yes.
I've been on a couple.
Great.
Since, so that's.
Are you allowed to
that's
say where
interesting.
you've been? Not to clubs, but to countries.
I've been to Germany and to Ireland.
Great.
So
Both brilliant places to go.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm learning German as well. So it
South
helps
or east? Were you near the The coast in Ireland?
He's not going to tell you.
No. Okay. Just trying to narrow it down. Okay.
But those leagues, going back to that, leagues, we chose those based on strength as well as financial analysis. We kind of looked into the average wages and the level using ELO and a couple of other things that we use as well, and sort of worked out pound for pound where was strong, or especially in relation to the Championship, where could we find value.
What's ELO?
ELO is a system. Have you used it?
It just makes me think of the band. That's all.
Yeah, not the Electric Light Orchestra. They're not compiling data on leagues, but it's a way of comparing teams across league using a system of like historic results.
Okay.
And so I think that's mainly driven from when clubs have met cross-border in European competition. But then from that, they're analysing the league and giving each club within the league a score.
Right, okay.
So we've been able to compare using that and a couple of other things.
So it's a bit like a coefficient or something.
Yeah. So like strength across Europe, and so looking at the Championship, who compares well with the Championship, and then financially speaking as well.
Okay.
It's interesting because you have, I mean, I know probably, I don't know, maybe like 3 seasons ago, Bundesliga 2 was really hot for players that were coming out of Bundesliga 2 and doing well in the Bundesliga or elsewhere.
Yeah.
Ligue 2, probably 2 seasons ago, a season ago is the same thing. But it's one of those things where if the financial imperative is also really important, those Ligue 2 in France is really good at producing talent. But the more that people recognise that, the more the financial thing becomes an issue, because suddenly those clubs turn around and go, well, actually everyone wants to buy from us.
So Ligue 2
so you've got to keep staying ahead of that.
Ligue 2 is a saturated market now.
Yeah.
Every club, it seems. Because I think we're fairly late to the party in terms of European scouting because of where we are as a club and financial limitations and this, that and the other. But Ligue 2, like you say, produce so many players now that everyone is there watching. So again, you just create another market of teams competing and like you say, agents and clubs demanding the according fee, because there's quite a few takers for their players, so they can use that to their advantage. And less so probably with Bundesliga 2 at the moment. There's still some value there. So that will become less and less with more and more success. But there are a few other leagues that we've worked out are potentially like good markets for value. And we're monitoring players from those leagues closely now as well.
Because to me, that's the interesting thing, is that it's not simply... I remember watching the Sunderland documentary, which I don't know if you saw or not.
Yeah,
but
I watched it.
They had what I'm guessing was their sort of flagged list of players that was brought to the chairman, and it had people like Zlatan on it, and it was there was a sort of a sense of which that not to do them any disrespect, but there's a, you're not just looking for the best players.
No.
You're not even looking for the best players for your level that are affordable. What you're actually looking, I think, a lot of the time, and particularly if you're the sort of club that I think Millwall is, you're looking for the best player at the best value.
Yeah.
And that's such a crucial element of it, that you can't just look at who these guys are and what they do. You've got to look at all of these other facets, like, is it a saturated league? What are the agents like? Is everybody else looking here? Are we going to get into a bidding war with other championship clubs, or is the competition, I don't know, the Austrian Bundesliga?
So, I mean, like I mentioned with the data flagging lists of players, if those players are already pretty well known and have a market value of several million already, it's unlikely that they're going to be an option for us. So you have to use a certain amount of common sense with it. But also we've made a couple of tools for estimating transfer fees, and that's helped to provide values on our own players as well, which have been used in negotiations with other clubs.
Right.
In terms of...
Do those work on historical examples as well?
Yes, it's used historic transfers to produce those values, obviously adjusted for the times and the increase in whatever. But that's just one thing we use to work out, okay, what could the fee be for them, and is that within our remit,
right?
Along with common sense. Going back to the Sunderland thing, though, I suspect some clever editing on Netflix's part.
Oh, I'm sure to a degree
that was
there was
probably just a list of out-of-contract players, and his name happened to be there because we produced the same lists, and his name would have been somewhere on there, but wouldn't have been read aloud for a TV documentary to come along and point fun at, because obviously there's a hell of an 11 of out-of-contract players across Europe if you could afford all the wages under the sun. But
talking of out-of-contract players briefly, before, given Premier League clubs and the massive infrastructure they have around academies, the under-23s league, that sort of thing, how much of an impact has that made on clubs lower down, both in terms of players being hoovered up from catchment areas, and obviously you're in a hideously competitive catchment area where you are, but also some of those players being released for whatever reason and actually being really, really good quality players who just don't, you think of someone like Josh McGreekin who was, I don't know if he was released or bought from Chelsea, but didn't make the grade at Chelsea, but has gone on to be instrumental for Brentford.
Yeah.
Are there more of those guys around?
Well,
is it better that they're going through the academy before they come to you, or?
We're finding that there's less and less of those now.
Right.
Whilst the big clubs will just hold on to their players for as long as they possibly can, because they can afford to, and if that player shows any sign of becoming something, then they can afford to keep them around.
This episode of the podcast is supported by The Athletic, the best place to read about football online. Visit www.theathletic.co.uk/Tifo for a 30-day free trial and 50% off an annual subscription. Also, very exciting announcement, Alex. The Athletic, look more excited.
Well, I don't know what the announcement is yet, Joe.
Okay, well,
I'll greet the announcement with an appropriate level of excitement.
I'm looking forward to hearing that, because I'm going to tell you that The Athletic are releasing a series of new podcasts.
Oh.
That's not excited enough.
Well,
okay, let me tell you what they are, and maybe you'll be more excited.
Details.
Okay. There's more than this, but podcast number 1, I've got 3 here that I can tell you about. Podcast number 1, the Ornstein and Chapman podcast. Oh, recognise those names?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay, not that excited yet. Mark Chapman and David Ornstein break open the week's biggest stories and take you deep into the inner workings of the football machine. I am a football machine.
I like Mark Chapman.
Yeah, I like David Ornstein.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a what do they call that? Like a primo team? Okay, listen, that one sounds great. If that doesn't tickle your fancy, I don't know who you would be if it didn't. This one will, specifically because you're listening to the Tifo Football. It sounds like they're ripping us off here. Tifo Football Podcast, Zonal Marking Podcast. I'm actually quite excited about that. The Athletics' Michael Cox and Ali Maxwell, both of whom have been on this podcast and both of whom are great guys and great talkers. Ali Maxwell and Michael Cox break down the tactical and technical details of football, past and present, focusing on a single subject each episode with the help of expert guests. It's like I've heard that idea somewhere before, I don't know where, but you know what? It's a perfect... It's really what... You can never have too much of a good thing.
You can't.
You can't have too much of a good thing.
You can't have too much Ali Maxwell.
No, those guys... Yeah, Ali Maxwell's brilliant, isn't he? I loved it when he came on. That was a really fun episode. And Michael Cox as well. Yeah, they're both great.
Ali Maxwell is really, really good.
Yeah. As is... I feel like we're leaving out Michael Cox, but
sure.
Doesn't need anyone to tell you that Michael Cox is brilliant. That'll be really interesting. I'm really excited
I have very much enjoyed the historical tactical pieces he's done, looking back at teams. There was a good one recently on Zambia when they won the Africa Cup of Nations.
Right, yeah. Hey, the third one, you might like this as well.
There's a third?
There's way more than that, but I'm only telling you about 3 now.
Okay.
Handbrake off. That doesn't sound safe. Unless you're just starting the car. You've always got to take the handbrake off to start the car.
No. You don't drive, mate, so I'm not.
You take the handbrake off and then...
You start the car, then you find the biting point on the gear, then you take the handbrake off.
I think you take the handbrake off and then you get into the car as it's moving down the hill. Anyway, handbrake off. The Athletics, they're all from The Athletic. Amy Lawrence and James McNicholas, who've, again, both been on this podcast, both brilliant talkers, both fantastic people, I would say, alongside Ian Stone, to bring you a weekly podcast on Arsenal Football Club. They'll be joined by club legend Lee Dixon.
Okay.
I mean, that was my excited voice.
Yeah.
To discuss some of the most fascinating stories from Arsenal's past every single week, as well as expert insight from the Emirates. Primo. It's all primo.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Okay, so we flagged our players. There's a big old list of them. There's different priorities based on how quickly you want to scout them or not. This is presumably going on all the time, not just during the transfer windows when we're talking about it.
Yeah, it's the day job.
So the jump from what you're doing to whoever it is at Millwall that is going to then make those decisions as to who to target and who to maybe make a transfer offer for, what does that jump look like, and who is then going on to make those decisions?
Yeah, there's several elements involved in that jump, like as you say. So you continue data analysis, and you might start to present visual comparisons from a data perspective on maybe one or two players from different leagues and things that have come up, and you're thinking, all right, we're gaining some momentum with this player, like reports are coming back really well. Let's start to delve even deeper into their data, and so you might begin to draw comparisons between shortlisted players, and you also start to dig a little deeper into that player as a person as well, and delving into character.
Is that by asking people that you know in the industry for their opinion, or?
It wouldn't be me. That's not really my job specifically, but our head of recruitment has so many contacts and relationships across football, so there's always someone you can call about someone.
Right.
He's also always liaising with agents and things, so you start to build relationships with players who you haven't even spoken to yet. So you're laying the groundwork for what could be, and like getting an idea of that player as a person as well, and because that's a massive thing for our football club. Like, they can't just be a good player, they've got to be the right player and the right person for us to come and play for us. So all those elements will start to go into these lists. We start to build some lists of options, like who are your priority options, who's next, and obviously then financial constraints come into that as well. So
it sounds like organisationally there's a lot of admin to do there. Like,
so much admin,
quite difficult. I mean, even just how you're describing it, I feel like it's quite difficult for me to get my, if I were doing your job, and I mean my job, there are very few different things that I need to do at once. But if 4 things happen, I get a bit flustered and need to take them one at a time.
Yeah.
When you're coming back to look at a player who's been, listed with a certain priority, presumably you are then remembering the last time that you looked at them, and you've got all of these other things going on with their position.
Every report gets logged.
Right.
We start to build.
So you really rely on that kind of
it's massive,
the foundations of that.
That's relatively new for us as well. So previously it was keeping a mental track and constantly looking into that player's profile on this sort of report provider and reading through the reports and thinking, okay, well, I've had like so and so many signed verdicts or very positive, high scoring monitor verdicts, because on the bottom of each report they can put whether they would don't sign, monitor, or sign them, for example. So you can start to look through all those reports and working out who's building momentum and strong monitors and sign verdicts and stuff. But now obviously we have this system to do that for us, and again we've got a score. We love a score, a confidence score.
A confidence score.
So yeah, that will be made up of the reports that we've then fed back into the system.
Right.
So how high did their performance score on the scouting report? What was the verdict? Who the scout was that provided the report as well, because we have different levels of scout.
Okay.
And that will contribute to a confidence score in that player. And as that score goes up, you start to think, okay, this player is building.
It really is like a computer game, isn't it? I mean, where obviously a much more complex version of it, but a rudimentary. I think they do this in FIFA, certainly in the more recent versions. When you want to go and sign a player, you don't immediately know all of their stats, and you have to scout them first, to have those things revealed. That's very interesting. I hate to cheapen this conversation by what I'm about to say, because I'm going to compare it to the film Moneyball, because that is my only real reference for these sorts of discussions. But as you were talking about the shift from keeping a mental track of these sorts of things and moving to having a more comprehensive digital profiling system, it reminded me of that scene where Brad Pitt, sexy Brad Pitt, is in the room with all the old baseball guys who are just shooting the shit about the players that they're thinking about bringing in, and they seem to have all of their scouting knowledge and their knowledge of these players in their heads, but Brad Pitt likes the computer guy more. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's an element of...
Who's the Brad Pitt at Millwall? Are you the
Pitt?
Brad Pitt, or is there another? Is there a Brad Pitt?
No,
there?
I mean, so Brad Pitt. What was Brad Pitt?
He was the GM, actually, wasn't he?
The general manager.
Yeah,
so
it's probably your head of recruitment.
That's difficult to translate. But our head of recruitment is essentially.
Does he look anything like Brad Pitt?
He'd like me to say yes, but no. Sorry, Alex.
It's a very difficult thing to do, to look like Brad Pitt.
We don't look like Brad Pitt.
No, we don't. No. It's really interesting though. Okay,
he's called. Sorry, I'm going back to him because he's coordinating everything essentially. Like you've got day to day in the office would be myself and then another analyst who's come in the last couple of years. Josh Kennard, and then Chief Scout Terry Bullivant, and Head of Recruitment Alex Aldridge in the office on a daily basis. Right. So there's a mixture there of, Terry's been in the game for his whole life, it seems, and countless stories and countless tales from playing days, managing, scouting now. He provides, everything from that perspective, and
he sounds like real fun to go to the pub with.
Oh yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But he will just disappear if you're down the pub with him.
Really?
After a few beers, it just vanishes.
What do they call that? An Irish exit or something, is it? That's come up once before on this podcast.
I think he can sense. He's got that sense when things are getting too messy.
Nice.
Just vanishes.
I like to do that as well.
Before anything bad happens.
Yeah. I think if there's a certain number of people at the pub that you're with,
no one notices anyway.
More than 5, no one notices when I leave. No, even when I'm trying to say goodbye, they just ignore me. But if there's more than 5 people at the pub, I reckon you can just walk out, and that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I'm not far behind him, to be fair. When he's gone, it's okay. That might be
the stories
the
are done.
Knell for the evening.
Yeah.
And you're talking about Moneyball, and one of the things that you get in that film is the sense that scouts get invested in certain players. I really like that guy. They advocate for them. And certainly from Football Manager I've played, you develop, not a fixation is maybe the wrong way of putting it, but there are players that you identify that you get really excited about. And so I guess my question to you is in 2 parts. Firstly, are you much more professional than that? I mean that in a nice way. Like, is everybody basically just a set of numbers and a set of characteristics, and they either work for the club or they don't? Or do you get excited and so on? Second question being, in relation to that, do you get, not frustrated necessarily, but I don't know, if you're tasked with looking for a left winger, you might find 3 or 4 who are all fantastic, and you can only sign 1 or 2. Do you get frustrated that you can't have all of them, even though you don't really need them? Do you then follow how those guys do, even after they've gone up?
Oh yeah,
possibly beyond Millwall's level. No disrespect intended, but
yeah, you do get excited about some more than others. Yes, everyone has a set of numbers, but we're as subjective as we are objective. We don't believe in one thing over the other. So, and at the end of the day, we're all human as well. So if you go and watch someone and really like what they did, then be like, wow, yeah, like I can see him playing for us, and you're excited visually as well as looking at them on paper. And
do you find yourself making an argument for them more back in the office if you've really enjoyed them
probably.
playing?
If you've seen it for yourself,
I've seen this guy.
Yeah.
We need this guy.
They can probably tell. You can tell when someone's wrote a report and they're just doing absolute cartwheels about someone.
Right.
Like, it's so strong. Like, and that will be reflected in that report score. So again, there is a number to back up their excitement.
But like you said, there's an emotional connection. Almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't want to take that out of the game, because we are bringing everything together to make better decisions. That's essentially what we're doing. Using objective methods, but not ruling out subjective ones. You know, and it's all about creating better decisions, creating better options, and then enabling those that make the decisions to make better ones, to make more informed ones. And then, I mean, you could have this list of players, and then if it comes down to, well, he's not available, we can't afford him, he doesn't want to come, okay, we're down at the fifth one. That's just how it is. So I've done it for 4 years now, and I don't remember a window where you'd go and get everyone you wanted.
Right.
Like, wanted as a priority, that is.
Yeah.
Because ultimately everyone we sign comes through a system, and even if, going back to the start again, availability can flag players. Because, you know, their situation at one club might mean that they could be available. So, okay, let's have a look at that option. And then that still goes through the same process of data analysis and scouting. It might be video scouting because they're not playing. But it can be availability led. So, yeah, there's so much to consider.
It seems like a huge... I mean, it seems like it is a huge amount of work.
Yeah.
Because if you think you've said something like 400 players on your current system, you've been doing your job for 4 years, you'll have been involved in the assessment of well over 1,500 players.
Of course. We started this system in the summer, and we're already up to 400 players.
So in the course of a transfer window, you might sign 3 players, 4 players maybe?
Yeah.
So you're looking at probably a maximum, if we exclude youth signings, of somewhere between 5 and 10 players joining Millwall in a calendar year. Yeah. And those 5 or 10 players have come from a list of 1,000, 1,500.
That's why you have to use...
that are flagged.
Yeah.
And the world of football outside those who've been flagged is even larger.
Oh, okay,
I mean, it just...
Yeah, it is.
The funnel is so narrow.
That's exactly it, the funnel. Like we've made, where we've presented like what we do or what we've done to various people, we often use this diagram of a cone that is like essentially all these elements being funneled down and filtered and sent at the end of the day. After so much work, you end up with a list, and then even signing them after working out who's available and who we can sign them, we want to sign them, let's try and sign them. Trying to sign someone is a pain in the arse, and I'm not even involved in that. You just go on a roller coaster with, you know, agents and clubs, and it can be an absolute nightmare just trying to get people in the door.
This is what I wanted to ask you, actually. After your job is done, at the end of that, and obviously there isn't one point in the year where you present this, you know, whoever with a list, but that is as a metaphor, it's a good way of looking at it. That's something that's happening continually. But when you've finished your job and you've handed off that list to whoever's job it is to then go on and sign the player, presumed, as you said, you have no role going forwards in that. You just hope that the players that, you know, you hope that essentially your advice to whoever's role that is heeded and it's successful.
Yeah. So I do everything, like you say, everything up to that point. If it goes to the manager, you've done everything to help the manager make his decision, including
what range of an expected value for the player as well.
He's presented with all that. We produce dossiers on every option there is, and that includes comparison. So there's so much going into them making that decision. Once it gets beyond that, I guess you have to just we are just preparing for, okay, what if that doesn't happen?
Are you
What's the next
well
one?
informed? Like, is there a good communication between the two groups? So if you know where you are at a certain stage with a certain player.
Yeah, so the head of recruitment who works with us on a daily basis is will sort of go with the chief executive and try and get deals done. But he's constantly keeping us in the loop as to how that's going, and it's a roller coaster.
Do those things happen outside of the transfer windows as well, like those conversations, the initial ones? Or is it? I mean, I know it's a flurry of activity in the summer.
Tapping up, Joe.
Oh no, I don't mean like specific conversations around players, but I just mean presumably it's in their thoughts. They're working towards those things before January.
Yeah, so agents are well aware of their players' situation and how their players feeling, so they're preparing for every situation just like we are. Mm-hmm. That's the best way of putting that, I think.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, there is constant conversation and, working out what could be an option and what would not.
Do you watch them once they've signed?
Yeah.
If you've got a lad that you've gone, right, definitely put the house on him, are you then checking in on how he's doing?
That's the most terrifying thing.
Yeah.
When, you've gone through all of that, you've managed to get them signed, and then the first time they put on a shirt and step out and you're there to see it, okay, let's hope and pray he does well now, because it's at the end of the day that's the job. I mean, you could not sign your top priority and they come in and do really well. You could sign your top priority and they come in and underperform.
Yeah.
Obviously, everything you're doing is also, you're trying to make better decisions, but you're also trying to reduce risk.
Yeah.
Because every transfer, there's risk. Like, you can sign the most highly regarded player in that league or in that country at that time, and they come in and it still doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That happens a lot and will continue to happen. That's people, that's performance, that's the nature of it.
Right.
So going to watch who you brought in for the first time is
nerve-wracking.
Because
on a personal basis, presumably as well, the first time that you would talk to a player that you've scouted and that you've made the argument for is when they arrive at the club, right? You don't have a conversation with them before that. So
I wouldn't.
When they do arrive and maybe you talk to them, they don't know who you are, but you've spent maybe a year or maybe more following their game. It's a bit like, I listen to the Adam Buxton podcast, for example. I don't know if either of you guys listen to that. No, it's my favourite podcast. And I feel, that if I ever met that man in real life, it would be an odd dynamic, because I think we're really good friends, but we're not. He doesn't know who I am. Is it ever weird when you finally speak to them and they've got no idea who you are?
I don't really talk to the players.
You don't, right? Okay. You don't want to get attached.
Partly because I'm not like that talkative anyway with people I don't really know.
Right.
I'm getting to know you guys, so it's fine. It's great.
You're doing a pretty good job, yeah.
But yeah, so like you say, you've done all that work on them, compiled this, compiled that. I've even prepared their presentation. So the manager used to sit down with a target. Once we've gone through everything, you eventually managed to get them sat down with the manager to have a chat about joining the football club. Prepared a presentation to woo them,
right?
Essentially, put something together that will woo them, along with sitting down with the manager who will woo them himself. I've done all that and they've signed. Great. See them in the canteen the next day. Probably wouldn't say a word. Probably just say, all right. And also, it keeps me distant as well, because if it doesn't quite work out, I might be trying to replace him in 6 months.
Yeah.
And the same for all the other players as well. Like you say, improving on the weakest member of your squad. If I get on really well with him around the training ground, that's going to be a little bit weird if I'm constantly out trying to find his replacement and move him on.
Well, can I take it back to to sort of unfairly comparing it to a game? Does it ever feel like, I mean, what you're describing, this kind of...
There's a lot of game comparisons.
Well, but there's a lot of work, and it's a kind, grindy games are some of the most popular games. You put a lot of work in at the beginning to see the results sort of at the end or on an ongoing basis, right? But, just from what you've described, let's say you do spend a year looking at a particular player that you really like. You put all the work in, you make the argument for him, you do, you architect the wooing stage, it all comes off, and then the player comes in. Yeah. At that point, and then you don't talk to him, at that point, does it feel like you sort of are playing a game? Because in a way, that is I mean, I know that is what
I know what you mean.
Football Manager is supposed to reflect that.
I know what you mean.
From a different perspective, do you feel like you reflect the game in some ways?
I know what you mean, but I also like to dig into the personality of the people. Like, I get that from other sources, so I don't have to talk to them to get to know them, to work out what they're like and stuff. But we kind of try and do all that before we sign them anyway, because they have to be of a certain character to work well at our football club anyway. So that's another factor that I didn't mention in all of that recruitment process. But so you do kind of get to know them without speaking to them,
right?
So yes, that's like a game, but without it. FIFA,
but also just that you put a lot of
FIFA and Football Manager doesn't really have emotions and stuff.
No, that's true. But the work that you do is removed from the result. I think that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, if it's a bit like I can't think of a good comparison, but things happen essentially as a result of the work you do. But the direct. Them being a direct consequence of your work, but the direct link between that and the thing actually happening is a little bit existential in a way. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, as someone who used to play Football Manager a lot,
right.
I actually got annoyed once you got into the season. Right. I didn't want to manage the tactics of games. I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in everything that you do.
Right.
I would have been then very happy to hand it over
to
and
someone
just
else,
kind of get on with the next
and
set of
then really
scouting.
What's happened is you've just made things happen by sitting in a room and then going to, occasionally going to scout players, and then a football club changes and you have a whole season whether you win or lose. And as I said at the beginning, it's a lot of responsibility, right? I mean,
are you in Football Manager? Can you be hired?
I think so.
Yeah. Because
what's your star rating?
Can.
Do you have a star rating? Do they have those in Football Manager?
My colleague Josh was obsessed with Football Manager and is devastated that he's not on the latest game. But I've been on it for a while because I played for Braintree. I played for Braintree and I was on.
Right.
I spoke to the guy when I was there, and so he put Braintree on the game.
Right.
So I've been on it ever since, and it's got my career history, like at Histon, working as an analyst. Histon and stuff, that's on there.
Would you advise listeners to buy you as a scout?
Yeah, I think he showed me one year I had 18 for presentation skills or something.
He's good at the wooing.
So
nice.
Also fairly good media skills, I would say.
It had working with youngsters is quite low.
Right, okay.
I don't really have to do that. So
well, there you go. That'll be why it's low then.
Josh, my colleague, is the most youngster I have to work with. And
right.
He's
12 years old.
So
yeah.
Not quite.
He's only just got a national insurance number.
Okay, so I'm trying to think if there's a question.
You mean like you're talking more about day to day working with the player that I don't really have anything to do with, like training and stuff?
Yeah, well, I'm more interested in the relationship really, based on how close you are to their numbers for such a long time. It's an interesting dynamic. Would you be comfortable telling me who? Well, maybe you would, maybe you won't. But like the best player that Millwall currently have that you feel proud to have been part of the work to bring that player in. I don't know if you want to start.
It's probably not fair.
No, that probably isn't fair. You tell me after we stop recording?
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll tell me after. That's fine.
You're more involved with some than others.
Yeah.
You're involved in everything because it always goes through us. But if it's like availability or agent led, then you probably don't feel as excited about that one as another one that you've monitored from, wherever, another league, another club.
And have you had those moments where you felt super proud that, a big part of it is down to you and it's worked out?
Yeah.
It feels good.
But then you won't go around shouting about those ones because on the flip side, you could be more involved with one that doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And you're not going to go around shouting about that one, are you? So
no, but from a personal perspective, when you see them play and you see it work out, and or maybe let's say they score a winning goal.
I'm not great at self-promotion, so I probably won't mention the good ones as much as I wouldn't want to mention the bad ones.
But it feels good to you. That's the point I'm trying to make. When you're not to talk about it, but
just
like
quietly satisfied.
When you're in the stands and they score a goal or whatever.
Oh yeah,
you have moments of like,
fist bump.
Fuck yeah, that was me, man.
Yeah.
I did that.
That's the first time we've sworn.
No, I said shit earlier. It's fine.
Did you?
Do you have to put a parental advisory on it?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, but they all have that anyway, so it's fine. No one's phone has
There
a
are
parent thing
moments-
on these days.
There are amazing moments like that. Like when 'cause I get to the odd Millwall game. I watch a lot back on video.
Yeah.
If I'm at a game and then like a big, we love a cup run at Millwall, for example, and like the win over Everton last season when I was there, and a few of ours, most of the team has probably come for us now, to be fair, but a few of our like most involved ones like scored in like a huge moment for the club, and you're just like, wow, this is great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Presumably you said like it's a day job, so you're watching football or crunching numbers 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Like you say, a lot of admin as well. It's just
Or admin. Do you find when you go home then that you just can't be asked to watch football?
sometimes. Plus, I have to draw the line with my wife somewhere, because
Fair.
obviously everything
Yes.
revolves around football.
Yeah.
So to come home and then just stick more and more football on can get a bit much for her sometimes. But she's pretty good, and if I want to watch games, then I'll make a case for it. There's a player.
he's really got his wooing skills.
You'll sit her down and say, I've got a presentation
has
for you.
acquired
18, score
such and
18
such
for that.
confidence score, and
Right.
I really want to keep an eye on him in this
Nice,
game on
yeah.
the telly tonight. Or just
Yeah.
make something up.
I like it. One final question. How do you do your job? How did you get to do your job? I mean, a lot of people ask us, who listeners to the podcast or viewers of the videos, who want to get
Yeah.
involved in football. How did you do it?
So, well, when I was at uni, which was 9-10 years ago now, early on in the second year, the opportunity came up to do some voluntary work with Histon. And out of like a group of, I think it was 400 in this seminar about said opportunity, 8 people went along to the club and sat down with the player manager then, which was David Livermore, and said, he was like, oh yeah, we've got such and such a role for you if you're interested, blah, blah, blah. And then I think I was the only one that then pursued that interest. He didn't sort of go and keep everyone, he didn't go and chase everyone to go and work for him. So I went to like a Histon under 18s game at Soham on a Tuesday night. I was late and I watched this under 18 game and did like notational analysis.
Right.
My first sort of taste of stats in football, basically, and everything, pen and paper, put a little report together, numbers backed up with what I thought, sent him a match report, and then the next day I was at the training ground, and it went on from there. So essentially, like that decision to go to Histon on a Tuesday night, or to Soham, not even to Histon, but to Soham on a Tuesday night to just put my foot in the door, got me an opportunity working with him on games, doing video as well as data work, and then going into the training ground like after lectures on a couple of days a week, going to games and stuff. And then he went to Millwall under 18s. I joined him alongside uni, so all the time I'm acquiring education and experience hand in hand, and just work my way up from there, basically.
Great, man. Hey, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Hope you come back maybe later in the season or next year. We can do another version of this.
I'd love to, yeah.
Alex, thank you. And we will be back next week. I know what we're doing. Next week is a big Tottenham special.
Why, Joe? Why are we doing
I
Tottenham?
don't know why. I
don't
feel like
either.
something has happened. I don't know what it is. But we have Jack Pittbrook and Charlie Eccleshare from The Athletic are coming on to talk to me about why what happened and why. And also you and Seb will be there to talk me through. I guess we will have seen probably 2 Jose Mourinho Tottenham games by that point. So we can have a little look back at the tactics of yesteryear and the tactics of now. Yeah?
Sounds thrilling.
Actually, given that I normally say I don't know what's happening, that wasn't bad, was it?
That was all right.
That was all right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much, and see you next week. Goodbye. Hey, Tifo listeners, how does the sound of free beer sound to you? I've read that first sentence wrong, but don't worry about it. You understand what I'm saying.
free beer. All you've got to do is go to www.beer52.com/Tifo and cover just £4.95 for the postage. New customers only, please. And you will get 8 free beers plus 2 additional free beers. That's 10 free beers delivered to your house normally the next day. Although, having said that, if you are doing this before Christmas, you need to order them before the 17th of December to ensure that they will actually arrive before Christmas. You wouldn't want to miss out on them. Beer 52 are beer pioneers. They traverse the globe to find the best and most interesting beer from the greatest small batch breweries planet Earth has to offer. Themes have included Germany, Korea, Norway, South Africa, California, Finland, and many more, but they haven't forgotten their roots. No. The beauty of Beer 52 is they don't hold you to ransom. There's no lock-in, and you can leave at any time. Essentially, what you are signing up for is a monthly subscription to delicious beers, right? But there's no minimum requirement, so if you just want to try it out for the first month, or as I said, all you do is cover the £4.95 postage. If it's not your thing, you can cancel before you're charged for the next month. Just go to www.beer52.com/Tifo. That's beer52, the numbers.com/Tifo to get your first case of 8 beers for free. And don't forget, Tifo customers get an extra 2 unmissable beers for free. That's 10 free beers. That's beer52.com/Tifo. Claim this unmissable deal by the 17th of December to guarantee pre-Christmas delivery. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode.